family, and friends. I look around the Gordon Chapel today, and obviously I see so many family. But as I look around even more, I see more family and more friends who have become family. This is a warm setting for all of us to find ourselves in. And though this room often welcomes us in times of joy, it's also in times of sorrow that we find meaning in all the stages of life. And so in God's presence, we have reasons to be sad, but also so many more to feel grateful and blessed. And so our time together will surely remind us of all the moments that we wish could have lasted longer and better. But as we appreciate the cycle of life and nature, we also express our thanks for what we have been given and what we continue to hold deeply in our hearts. So as we open this time together, I'm going to invite Cantor Firebush to share with us a psalm of consolation. And as he begins, let me also remind you to please be sure that your phones are in a silent position today.
Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid ki mimini balemot lachen samach libi vayagel kivodi af bisari shkol lavetach ki lo ta'azov nafshi lishol lo titen chasidcha lirot shachant tol yedi orach chaim orach chaim sol vasimachot et panecha neimot bimincha netzach shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid ki mimini balemot.
From Psalm 16. I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side. I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice. My being is secure. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful one see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. Death has taken our dearest Yvonne Miller, and we have grieved and continue to grieve in our darkened world. In our silence, we feel sadness deep within, and when we cry, we feel more alone than ever before. When we feel lost in our sorrow, may we always find the presence of dearest family and friends. God, hear us this day and be with us. For Yvonne's love that united us in life, in which death cannot sever. For her companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of her heart and mind that brought us so much joy, so much happiness, and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and so much more, we give our thanks to God. Let's join together in reciting the words of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The psalmist asked, where do we find the source of our help in time of need? The psalmist answered for us wisely. We lift our eyes to the mountains. Our help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. There's a beautiful reading in Proverbs 31. In Hebrew, it's called Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. I know that there are some who say, Rabbi, don't read this at my memorial. Don't read this at my funeral. It speaks of a woman of such traditional times. But as we look at these words and read them, they are not just from traditional times. They are timeless words, and they speak of Yvonne in our time. They begin, a woman of valor, who can find? She is more precious than fine pearls. Her husband trusts in her, and so he lacks nothing. She does him good, never harm all the days of her life. She perceives that her labor is rewarding. Her candle burns on into the night. She reaches out to those in need and extends her hands to the poor. She is clothed in strength and dignity, and she faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband sings her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but you excel them all. Beautiful words. And so we learn as well in our tradition that Job cried out, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. Death and sorrow are not strangers to any of us. Yet we have learned from the centuries of death and life that a good name endures beyond the grave, and that there is strength to be found in faith. And so we've learned to say, as Job did, Adonai natan, God, you have given. You gave us a loved one who will not be forgotten. For all that was good and enduring in her life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Adonai lakach, and yet, O God, you have taken away. We pray for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust, before which we acknowledge your sovereignty and your love, as we say, Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach. Blessed be the name of God, now and forever.
In the rising of the sun, we remember. In the blowing of the wind, we remember. In the opening of buds, we remember. We remember. In the blueness of the sky, we remember. In the rustling of the leaves, we remember. As the year starts and it ends, we remember. We remember. When we're weary and need strength, we remember. When we're lost and sick at heart, we remember. When we've joys we yearn to share, we remember. We remember. So long as we live, they too shall live. They are now a part of us. They are now a part of us. They are now a part of us. As we remember, we remember. We remember.
Today is a day of gratitude more than a day of sadness. For 94 years, Yvonne Miller lived a life of remarkable grace and dignity. Though her last years were challenging, they cannot take away what will always be remembered as her best years. Reared in Houston, she and Arnold made their home in Waco. Though it was far from her comfortable life here, Waco quickly became hers and theirs. It was more important to her than anything, especially as they and their family came together. Arnold and Yvonne watched them grow and created their circle of lifelong friends. In Waco, Yvonne became all that she was meant to be. She was a marvelous homemaker. She made a beautiful home. A skilled baker and cook, she created mouth-watering dishes that everyone enjoyed. Arnold worked the grill, and Yvonne knew her way around the kitchen well. Her recipes for main courses, desserts, side dishes, and breads came from her family's history and from her favorite sources. I'm told that her breads were legendary. When she came to Houston, she brought as many loaves as she could carry to give to her family and friends here. Yvonne loved to feed her family. She was a real nurturer. Her children were the recipients of all her love. It's been said, the mother is everything. She's our consolation in sorrow, our hope in misery, our strength in weakness. She is the source of love, mercy, sympathy, and forgiveness. Those who lose their mother lose a pure soul who blesses and guards them constantly. Karen remembers well her mother's care and interest in everything she held dear. When Karen came home from school or an event, she and her mother would sit on the bed and talk about every detail. With eager eyes and a ready smile, Yvonne listened, guided, and affirmed Karen's every move. When Karen and Joe married and made their home in Houston, Karen talked to her mother often, perhaps constantly, one might say. And why not? It was a link between mother and daughter that bound them closely. Joe remembers his first date with Karen and the first opportunity to meet her parents. Like his relationship with his own parents, Joe recognized that Karen's parents were also so special, and they welcomed him eagerly. Gary will tell us more in a moment, but let me say that Gary is the man he grew to be because his mother wasn't just a listening ear. She had plans for him. To Yvonne, education was an essential part of preparing for the world. She insisted on earning good grades, following through on responsibilities, and going to college to prepare for the best life one could earn. Yvonne modeled her goals by being an avid reader, a thoughtful and civic-minded person. She was a practical woman who was resourceful and industrious. Yvonne managed the house, watched over the children, and enjoyed love and marriage with Arnold. Her home was their haven. It was their refuge. Their marriage was a reflection of everything they loved to share. Their children, for sure, the house and property they tended mindfully, and the greenhouse they built to grow their plants year-round. And when they traveled, they found their way around the world. Without the need for fancy hotels or luxury liners, they explored and traversed thousands of miles through China, Europe, Russia, and more. They came home with more than souvenirs. They returned with stories and insights they shared together and with everyone who would listen. At home, they loved to welcome their friends. In Waco, the Jewish community was tight because it needed to be. Small then and smaller now, it prompted Yvonne and Arnold to open their doors to all their friends, Jewish and non-Jewish, for dinner, for conversation, and friendship. It was their life, and it was a very good life. Many decades ago, the Jewish community in the Texas-Oklahoma region began to look for a parcel of land to build a reformed Jewish summer camp for children. There were such camps in other regions, but nothing close enough for our children here. Arnold became one of the early visionaries and leaders of the camp's plans, which included buying its first 100 acres of land. Never far from his side, Yvonne was there to support the plans and to encourage Arnold in his dream for the region. To say the least, it came to fruition. As Green Family Camp grew and dozens and then hundreds of kids came to spend their summers in Bruceville, just outside of Waco, Arnold and Yvonne also purchased a farm of their own adjacent to camp. It served many purposes, but one of them was their delight in seeing the camp thrive. When I was a younger rabbi who spent time in the summer as a faculty member, I remember well seeing Yvonne and Arnold on their golf cart making their way through camp. They'd wave to me or stop long enough to catch up. It was one of my favorite times because I knew that their excursion through camp was more than social. They were checking everything to be sure the camp and the campers had everything they needed. I never held them up from their rounds on the golf cart. Yvonne was extraordinary. She was also a marvelous artist. A painter of floral settings, she took over an upstairs game room at home and turned it into her studio. With talent and skill, she created beautiful pieces that she took to markets and shows. She sold her pieces for quite a fine price, and her customers were proud to own her work, signed with her increasingly familiar Y. Miller. And because she was a lefty, the Y appeared as if it were written backwards. The added blessings in her life were her grandchildren. They will share their words too, but I will add that Judaism thrives on the blessings that grandchildren mean to us. In the Hebrew Bible, we learn, children's children are the crown of their elders. To see her grandchildren was Yvonne's greatest joy. For each of them, she made time in the kitchen making her favorite foods and bread, in the yard to find their way together down paths and over hills, and on special trips to create unique memories for them. Their Nani had an abundance of energy that she spent on her favorite people. When it came to her grandchildren, she never held back and always gave more. Yvonne carried herself with strength and dignity. She dressed beautifully and with her hair just so. But as I recall her, she didn't fuss more than was necessary. Better to enjoy the day than to waste time getting ready for it. No one held it against her because what she brought of herself was everything her family, friends, and neighbors needed, and she was loved for all of it. After more than 90 years of a full life, her health increasingly challenged her. It wasn't easy for her or those who were so close to her. And so when death came, there was sadness, but also deep gratitude for the peace she earned after a life of such generosity and goodness and love. We will miss her every day, but without regret. For Arnold, for Gary and Tony, for Karen and Joe and the entire family, her years were a gift, and her deeds made an indelible impression on all who were touched by her life. Zichronah livracha, may her memory endure among us as a blessing now and always. Amen. There are so many ways to remember Yvonne, but one of the best ways is to invite family to share their personal memories. And I'd like to begin by inviting her granddaughter, Jill, to share hers.
How lucky am I to have had my grandmother in my life for 46 years. While the last couple of years have been difficult, I have had so many wonderful memories of Nani woven throughout my childhood, young adult, and especially the years when I started my own family. Those shared memories help shape the home and traditions that our family continues to live this day. The kitchen was the center of Nani's world. She was well known in Waco for baking her desserts for Oneg Shabbat or hosting dinner parties for her many friends. But in our family, she was famous for her bread, affectionately known as Nani's bread. And when Bradley and I were young, Nani would bring 8 to 10 loaves to our house to store in our freezer. When we visited Waco, bread was always in the toaster, and Gramps could eat an entire loaf for breakfast. And when I think of Nani's house, I picture Nani and Gramps working in tandem together, feeding that starter like it was a full-time job. And this is one tradition that Amy and I tried so hard to carry on, but we could just never master it in the same way that Nani did. It just never was quite Nani's bread. I'm so thankful to my mom, who sat down with Nani about 20 years ago, and she deciphered the handwriting in her recipe box to get every single one of those recipe cards typed up and preserved. So I now have about a 4-inch binder filled with all of the recipes that I refer to almost weekly. Anyone that knew Nani well could easily guess the first ingredient in almost every recipe in that book. It's butter. And butter that was measured not in tablespoons, but pounds. Over the years, I've tried to make some small adjustments to fit our lifestyle, and you don't see a lot of Crisco or Caro syrup in recipes anymore, but honestly, it seemed to work really well for Nani for 94 years, and it tastes better that way too. Thanksgiving at the farms was always one of the greatest traditions of our family. Nani prepared for weeks, and before one meal ended, she was already planning and prepping for the next one. Her chocolate pecan pies and sweet potatoes became staples of our holidays. Now that Thanksgiving has moved to Houston, I've taken on the job of making those pies, complete with the little plastic pilgrims that have to be at least 40 years old by now. And years ago, she tried to tell me that she had lost those pilgrims, and she thought they looked kind of shabby. But I found them. She had tucked them away in the kitchen drawer in the farm, and she was hiding them from me. But from that point on, those pilgrims have become a centerpiece of our Thanksgiving dessert. We proudly display them on the pecan pies, and they don't have noses anymore, but they're there. Walking through Nani Gramps' house in Waco was like walking through an art museum. One summer, I was in charge of photographing every piece of china, figurine, and accessory for their insurance records. And along the way, I received a lesson in art, history, and geography. Many of those treasured pieces now sit in our homes and our parents' homes today. And it's been such a joy to share a love of antiques with not only our spouses, but with our children as they begin to discover and appreciate them. Many of the pieces share a special memory from Nani Gramps' travels or a story that they shared. And I look around my house and I like to think about the meaning that each piece tells as I remember the Hershey minis that Bradley and I would steal from the beautiful crystal candy bar bowl that sits on one of his shelves, or the mail that was stacked high in the porcelain bowl that now sits on my dining room table. In addition to the art that Nani Gramps curated along their travels, Nani was also a talented artist, and many of us are lucky to have an original Y. Miller hanging in our homes. I spent countless hours beside her at the card table trying to recreate her beautiful floral paintings, but of course, they were never quite like hers. Nani was truly like a second mother to me. I loved my solo visits to Waco, where we cooked endlessly, played gin rummy, or more accurately, where I lost repeatedly to Nani. We watched Wheel of Fortune at the breakfast room table with Bobby Joe, or later Maggie, at our feet. We played with her mahjong tiles long before I ever thought I would have an interest in playing mahjong myself. I loved running up and down the giant hill in the backyard while she talked about her trees and the hanging plants and the bird feeders and all of her birds. And then together we would shop at all of her favorite places, especially the grocery stores. When Bradley and I turned 13, Nani Gramps took us on unforgettable trips. Bradley traveled to Europe, where he took a deep dive into European history and fell in love with the different cultures and seeing it through the eyes of his grandparents. And I traveled to Canada because she knew how much I loved the outdoors and mountain air. They also loaded all 4 of the grandchildren when we were about 10 years old and younger into a giant van for a road trip to New Mexico. We visited Carlsbad Caverns, we fished, we shopped, and she was just truly a hands-on grandmother. When I had children of my own, Nani became just as important in their lives as she always was in mine. She loved taking them to the Waco museums, walking through her neighborhood, and picking tomatoes from her vegetable garden with them. What a blessing it was for my children to know their great-grandmother for so many years, just as I knew Nani's mother, Bammy. Nani was also deeply committed to serving others. She relentlessly volunteered at Temple Road of Shalom and was a fixture at Green Family Camp. One thing I fondly recall that has always stuck with me is her telling me about her work at Planned Parenthood in Waco, during a time when supporting women's rights was not always popular. Even after receiving threatening mail, she never backed down, and she always encouraged me to stand up for what I believed in and loved talking to me about my own volunteer efforts. Nani and Gramps created a marriage that inspired all of us. Together, they built a legacy that was rooted in love and warmth and unwavering support of one another. We are so incredibly lucky to have Nani in our lives for so long. We see her influence everywhere, at every family gathering, at every recipe card, and every holiday table, and painting around our house and tradition that she created for us. We will continue to carry her memory forward for generations.
And I'd like to invite her granddaughter, Allison, to share her words.
Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Allison, and I have the unique privilege of being the youngest of Nani and Gramps' 4 grandchildren, and the first one to actually have kids of my own. About 12 years ago, sitting around the breakfast room table making conversation, I asked my kids what was their favorite hotel out of all of the hotels that they've ever stayed in. And Henry, who might have been 4, responded first with, "The Sleep Inn by the farm." Huh. Kate's eyes lit up, and she's like, "Yeah, that's right." To give you a little background on the Sleep Inn was our family's solution to a fantastic problem, which was that the Chesnick, Miller, Liebman family had outgrown sleeping at the farm. So the day would be spent looking for arrowheads and riding in tractors and eating so much delicious food. We would then go to Green Family Camp where we would just take it over and pretend like it was ours. We would have the best day with like the culminating event being in the evening where Gramps would make a fire and we would cook hot dogs on that fire. And we would eat Nani's delicious chili that tasted so much better out there. And then we would make s'mores. And the evening would end eventually with making our way to the Sleep Inn. So I'm pretty sure that the look on my face when Henry responded was something like, huh. And if I could describe it, I think it would be like a combination of perplexed and prideful. And so he followed up. He's like, "Don't you remember? For breakfast, they had that waffle maker, and you would pour the dough into the waffle maker, and it was shaped like Texas." And I had this aha moment then, and I've had it 100 times since, where my kids, have really become my greatest teacher. Because what Henry taught me in that moment was that the little things in life really are the big things. And Nani was such a master of all the little things. She had this remarkable ability to gather people around the table. And she created this amazing and beautiful meal with so much warmth where we all felt like we belonged. Her cooking was abundant and exceptional. And I still think about my favorites. Not everyone's favorite, but mine was pimento cheese. And then her pies were so good, her sweet potatoes and her spritz cookies, which I don't actually remember the taste of the cookie, but there was so much powdered sugar on them that I loved them so much. And as a lot of you know, my mom always had an emphasis on healthy eating, which I really do appreciate. Thanksgiving was a time for joyful and unapologetic indulgence, and I remember it so fondly. Nani lived a really beautiful and vibrant life, and she was deeply talented. I remember all of her paintings with flowers, and she was such a gifted chef, and she found joy in both creativity and connection. I loved hearing about Nani and Gramps' travel. They would come home with trinkets and memories, and they would talk all about their experiences. If you know me at all, you know that I am neither a chef nor an artist, but I do see Nani in each of my 3 children. I see her in Kate's love of making challah, and in Henry's great appreciation of travel and sense of adventure, and James's unwavering devotion to powdered sugar. In my work as a therapist, I often get the opportunity to sit with people and talk through their relationships with the people most important to them. And an approach that I take is often we close our eyes and we actually work backwards from the end. We work till when those people are no longer there. And I say, if you close your eyes and you fast forward to that time, how would you feel about the way you showed up for them? It's a question that tends to clarify what's most important. There are really no adequate words to describe the way that my dad has shown up for both of his parents, especially when it was hard in these last 5 years. He has shown up with patience and empathy, kindness and consistency. And yes, my mom has been right by his side. I know what my dad is thinking right now. He's whispering, not actually, but this is what I feel. Will and Bernardo. And he's right. Will and Bernardo deserve so much appreciation. The way that both of you cared for Nani and continue to care for Gramps is one of the most beautiful acts of love and devotion that I have seen. And I am a big believer that when you have a compliment to give, you should give it. So I'm going to. Since the burial, on 4 different occasions, people have mentioned how handsome both of you are. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Nani, thank you for showing us what it means to build a life centered on family. Thank you for showing us the importance of the little things. Jill, I think all the time about the pilgrim decorations on top of your annual birthday cake at the farm, and the inclusion of Neville's family in our already overflowing Thanksgiving that was so meaningful to all of us. I loved when Nani and Gramps showed up to Green Family Camp on Shabbat because I got to feel like a celebrity. I would ride all around in the golf cart just smiling away. Thank you, Nani, for the beauty you created, for the traditions you upheld, and for the love that you gave. May we honor you not only in remembrance, but in the way we continue forward. With gratitude and with a great appreciation for all the little things, knowing in the end that the little things really are the big things.
And it's a privilege to invite Yvonne's son, Gary. Come and share your thoughts and memories.
Good morning, everybody. It's really so great to see you all here. Many of you, most of you, have been in our lives for as long as I can remember. And it means so much to my family, my father, to have you here with us today. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say something to, especially the Waco crowd that couldn't make it. Some did, but some of them it was just too much. But for Frank and Eleanor and Louie and Sarah Jo and Bob, I know you're watching, and I really appreciate it. And you guys mean so much to all of us, and also Will for doing everything that you do. So I'm sort of the cleanup batter here today. I'm not sure there's much left to say after the rabbi's words and Jill's words and Allison's words, but I'm going to do my best to kind of sum it all up. And many of you knew my mom very well, and this will be a nice remembrance of what you knew already, and some of you just knew other members of the family and didn't know Mom. I started to consider my memories of Mom before she passed away during what was this incredibly long period of decline, but it was not until her death that my mind allowed me to consider all the amazing times that we had together and what she meant to all of us. I was talking to Tony and Karen about the same thing, and I think this, and they felt the same way, and I think this is one of the positive aspects of this process that we go through in losing a loved one. I could not start talking about Mother without, and what was meaningful in her life, without talking about her parents, Mac and Helen Frimmel, or Bumpy and Bammy, as we called them. What made Mac and Helen special was their love of family, their kindness, and the example that they provided as to what makes for a great marriage and a great life. Their love extended to their sons-in-law, Arnold and Johnny, who adored and were shaped by Mac and Helen. It also extended to their grandchildren, including Tony and Joe, and their great-grandchildren. Mom's parents were wonderful role models, and they were just plain fun, and the example that they gave helped shape the generations that followed. It was the foundation instilled by Mac and Helen that made Mom a terrific wife and mother. Mom was a bit of an intellectual, an avid reader, as you've heard, a scrumptious cook, a talented hostess, an artist, a devoted supporter of women's rights, and a loving sister to Nancy. Johnny and I were talking right after Mother passed away about what a wonderful relationship that Yvonne and Nancy had together. And that close-knit bond went beyond the two women to include their husbands, who were more like brothers. It was significant in many ways that the Frimmel girls passed away just 1 month apart, both after living an amazing life. Mom loved working in the yard at our house in Waco. Situated on more than an acre, Mom worked tirelessly to make things perfect. So Mom and Dad used to grow these staghorn ferns, and some of them weighed over 100 pounds. And they would create pups, and they would separate the pups, and they would give away the pups to their friends. I can't say that I inherited Mom's love of working in the yard, although I know some of you did. But I admired Mom's dedication and her ability. Another treasured memory, as you've heard about, was our family farmhouse, and what a blessing that farm turned out to be. Mom and Dad originally acquired the farm so they'd have a place of their own adjacent to Green Family Camp. For more than 20 years, Karen's family and my family would come to the farm for Thanksgiving. Often there were additional guests, and a feast for 20 or more was not unusual. Mom and Dad prepared the meal. Dad carved the turkey. Scott always got the first piece. And we all sat around an enormous makeshift table together. Every year we took a picture of the entire family. We'd always have to bring in someone to take the picture. And those pictures eventually got framed, and they were on the walls of the court of the farmhouse. And those photos marked the passing of time for the Miller family and put on full display the 4 generations of Millers who enjoyed Thanksgiving as a family together for so many years. Those celebrations at the farm had been over for a while, but these were memories that will live on with us for the rest of our lives. Mom loved Green Family Camp that was just a few hundred yards away from the farmhouse. Mom and Dad were instrumental in organizing the camp and helping it grow to the success it is today. Once Dad retired from the meatpacking business at the age of about 60, Green became more or less a full-time endeavor for Mom and Dad, and their dedication and their service really made a difference. I think I skipped a whole page. That could be great for all of y'all. But you know what? It doesn't matter because it's in no particular order. And there actually are a few more things that I want to say. When I consider Mom's life, the first thing that comes to mind was her incredible 75-year marriage to my father. They were inseparable. From the first day of marriage just before Mom turned 19, throughout all the wonderful years of raising a family, becoming empty nesters, and eventually the challenging years of old age, right to the very last day. Although different in so many ways, Mom and Dad put their children first and shared the same dreams for their family. Dad worked long hours, and Mom took care of the home and the kids. Together, they led a wonderful life centered around the local Jewish community and all of Waco. I always felt they were loved and respected by all. Special times for Mom included Mahjong with her friends Barbara Kirstein, Eleanor Levy, and Pat Siegel. And Karen, I know I'm leaving out someone, but you'll have to tell us later. Mom also continuously beat Dad to a pulp in the longest-running gin rummy game of all time. They kept score for 75 years, and I know who won, but we won't talk about it. Also, they traveled, as Jill said, they traveled all around the world. They attended art shows with their artist buddies, especially Gene Sadler and Elva Levy. We had great weekends on Lake Waco, riding in the family deck boat while feeding. Mom was always, of course, the cook, as you heard, feeding all the children on board and hanging out. She loved hanging out at the family farmhouse. But one of my favorite times with Mom was going to the annual Laguna Gloria Art Festival back in my high school years. Our family would pack up and head to Austin in a U-Haul with 50 or more of Mom's paintings and arrange them in a booth for the weekend show. I would run errands for our art buddies as they prepared for the show, and Mom and Dad would sell paintings all weekend. So just last week, I reached out to one of our former Waco neighbors to tell them about Mom, and the first thing she said was how much she treasured her Y. Miller painting from at least 50 years ago. I don't know that Mom was the most famous artist in Waco or the best, but she did have a following, and she did love her work. As the rabbi said, Mom had a very significant influence on my life, but nothing was more profound than her commitment to motivating me to be the best that I could be in school. My dad was not a big student. He was more about getting down to business and running the business. But Mother realized that for me to exceed in life, I was going to have to work hard and be the best student I could be. I listened, and that motivation has lasted me a lifetime. The last 2 years for Mom were tough. It was especially difficult for Dad, but for most of her years, Mom's life was a fairy tale. She had a family that loved her. There was meaning in everything she did. She had a great time, and she left the world a better place. We will miss her. I do miss her. But I don't think any of us have one regret about the incredible life that Mother led. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. May our mother's memory live on with us forever. Thank you.
She'd be so proud and so grateful to each of you for your words. As we take a moment now for silent prayer to collect our own thoughts and our own memories of Yvonne and all the years she created with us and for us, let's take that moment as we invite Cantor Flybush to sing Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. 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 Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam V'tov be'einecha levarech et Hamecha Yisrael B'chol eit u'v'chol shah B'shlomecha Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam Tasim Le'olam Tasim Le'olam.
O God of life, amid the ceaseless tides of change which sweep away the generations, your love remains to comfort us and to give us hope. Around us are life and death, decay and renewal, the flowing rhythm that all things obey. Our life is a dance to a song we cannot hear. Its melody courses through us for a little while, then seems to cease. Where does the melody go? From where did it come? In darkness as in light, we turn to you, the source of life and the answer to all its mysteries. We continue with the prayer of God's compassion, El Malay Rachamim. For those who are able, please rise.
El Malay Rachamim Shochein Mameromim Hametzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina Im Kiroshim Utehorim Kezohar Haraki Amazirim Et Nishmat Hayakara Shehalcha Le'olamah Baal harachamim yastireha b'seter kenafav le'olamim V'yitzror hayim et nishmatah Adonai hu nachalatah V'tanuach b'shalom al mishkavach V'nomar Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to our dearest Yvonne Miller, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. We conclude with words of Kaddish, not a prayer about death or sorrow or salvation, but rather an ancient praise to God, in whose presence we find all that we need in times of joy and especially in times of sorrow. In her honor and memory we say, Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yamad divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'galal v'zman kari v'imru, Amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam al'amei amaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, Vitadar, vitale, vitalal, shmei rashar brichu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiram bi'ama v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rab amin shamaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. May the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens cause peace to reign upon this dear family, the circle of friends, and all who were touched by Yvonne's life. Amen. A meal of condolence follows immediately in Wolftumim Hall behind the Gordon Chapel. As well, all are invited on Friday night to Congregation Beth Israel in the Gordon Chapel. I believe we're in the sanctuary Friday night at 6:30 p.m. when we'll memorialize the name of our beloved once more. And now please remain in your places for just a moment so that we may take the time we need to guide the family to Wolftumim Hall and to allow Arnold the moments he needs to find his way to his chair, and so that all of us can greet the family and share with them our deepest and dearest memories of our Yvonne. This concludes our service.